there's a few other people that might join, but I'll probably just get started now. Yeah, thanks very much everyone for your time. This the third and final of the 3 webinars that I've been working through. This one's about the big one, UTMB Mont-Blanc, the full 170 odd kilometers around Mont-Blanc. I'm going to start with a little bit of a presentation about myself. Some of you might have already attended one of the other webinars earlier in the week, so sorry if it's a bit repetitive, someone else just joined now. So yeah, I'm going to just share my screen just to get started on that. Sorry, one sec. Cool. So yeah, the next hour or so, oopsie, there we go, is all about UTMB itself, the big dance, the big one. I just wanted to give a bit of background about myself and why I feel like I'm someone who can help people who are on this journey. My interest in endurance sports started when I was very young, racing mountain bikes, primary school age. I was obsessed with racing cross country throughout my teenage years. I used to race in the junior up to junior level in the national series up and down the country, and I just loved reading about sports science, and I very nearly studied that at university. Sometimes I regret not doing that, but that's the topic of another story. And it was after university that I moved to the Lake District. In my last year at university, I read the book Feet in the Clouds, which is all about one man's quest to conquer the Bob Graham round. I managed to complete that less than a year after, and that's when I sort of realised I really like this longer ultra endurance stuff. The mountain bike racing that I'd done previous to that is like 90 minutes max, so if you imagine, you know, a half marathon kind of effort, that's all I'd ever been used to. And so moving on 2 feet instead of 2 wheels over mountainous terrain for just hours on end. I loved the training for the Bob Graham round, wrecking the routes and being out on the fells for hours on end. And then I did my first 100 mile in 2014. That was Lakeland 100. Just every year after doing the Bob, surprised myself by getting around in under 24 hours, which I think was good enough for 4th or 5th place that year. And one of my childhood dreams was to experience what it was like to be a full-time athlete, you know, to just do nothing but eat, sleep and train. So I'd had a couple of years of work experience in the real world of boring engineering under my belt, and decided I want to go and travel and get out of my comfort zone a little bit and see how far I can go with this running thing. So I went traveling, and that involved a lot of running in some quite nice mountainous places. When I came back from that, I've started to develop as a runner, as an ultra runner properly, and not getting so injured all the time. And 2016, I won Lakeland 100. And then again in 2017, and then this photo here is probably my proudest achievement. I realised you can only really get so far training and living in the UK. Admittedly, Tom Evans and Josh Wade and many others do it, but for me, I needed to be out there in the Alps getting used to the conditions. So 2017, I spent most of that summer living with Swedish runner Mimi Cockter and Brit runners Robbie Britton and his partner Natalie in the north end of the top end of the Chamonix Valley, just doing all I could to develop as an athlete. So these are the races that I've done. I've done all the UTMB races. I was meant to be doing TDS this year. Sadly, I'm going to be a DNS, but I'm going to be crewing for one of my athletes, Lucas, who's hoping to have a strong run in TDS instead. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm a coach and also a race director. Sorry, I'm just checking if there's anyone else waiting to join. I think that's everyone here. And I'm still involved in the race organising side of things. In 2017, after that result at CCC, I was a bit of a career crossroads. I either go back to product design, industrial design, or I had this idea for an event that I first had the idea for that when I was training for UTMB in 2015, and that was Ultra Trail Snowdonia. And I chose the latter path, and that's consumed a lot of my mind for many years. The racing started to take a bit of a backseat once COVID came. And yeah, the event was then, my goal with that was to be part of the Ultra Trail World Tour, as it was at the time, which then became the UTMB World Series. And it was acquired by UTMB in 2021. So I worked for them for 2 years. I'm pictured here with Josh, who I just mentioned. It's one of his favourite events, and it was nice to see him win in 2023, the full 100 miler. So yeah, I worked for UTMB for 2 years, and I got to see the ins and outs of the event from a organisational point of view. It's like the Tour de France of trail running. It's just the resources that it relies on to pull off are quite spectacular compared to any other event I've participated in or been a part of on the sort of organisational side of things. So yeah, I'm still doing events, albeit much smaller ones these days. I have an ultra in November, the Slate Trail Ultra, which might be of interest. But I'm keen to develop the coaching side of things moving forwards, because it's rewarding work for me, and I'm hoping to try and scale the knowledge that I've accrued over the last decade or so for other people. So if you're racing next week, you've probably, hopefully already got a good handle on the mandatory kit requirements, which are pretty extensive. But I've made a few notes here, just of things, little last minute tips that I've learned from during my time racing. I've put the first points. You can optimize the kit based on the actual weather conditions. What I mean by that is, if it's going to be wall-to-wall sun next week, which it doesn't look like it will be, we'll get onto that in the next slide. You can have like a super lightweight setup. So if you need to carry full waterproof cover, but you're not thinking you'll actually use it, you can go for the super light options that are on the market. I even had a pair of extra small waterproof pants that would barely fit me, and things like the running tights as well. If you think you're not actually going to be using them, a little thing me and Robbie used to do is buy some ladies tights from Primark or something and cut the feet off the bottom. So I mean, you'd be surprised how much weight and size volume that'll save in your pack. Another little tip. Something specific to UTMB, they have this additional list. Looking at the conditions, I think they're going to ask for quite a few of these, particularly the spare mid layer. This is at the additional warm layer. I know you can't really see it here, but I used to prefer, so the option is you can have quite a thick mid layer as to weigh something like 200 gram size medium, or you can have a slightly thinner one and a combination of a waterproof, a windproof with a DWR, durable water repellent finish on it. And that used to be the option I prefer, because I would actually keep that windproof easily to hand in the back of my pack. A lot of packs these days, they have the kangaroo pocket across the back. I would have that, my gloves and a buff easily to hand, and unless it was raining quite heavily, the combination of those three is enough just to keep you relatively warm if you're still running quite well, without having to take your pack off and get your waterproof out, pull that on over, etc. So yeah, a size up windproof, like a medium, you can pull that out and put it on over your pack. If you are if you've got a lot of new kit, I do recommend that you have at least a few runs with it fully loaded with the worst case scenario. So that includes all the bad weather kit as well that you might need. And also the nutrition that you're going to plan on using during the race. You might find that your pack sort of sits in a slightly different way. It feels different on your shoulders and spine, and it's good to have a couple of test runs just so everything's completely dialed in. You know what pockets things are going to be stored in. Ahead of race day, you might find, oh, actually this pack is getting a lot heavier now. I've made a point, the second from the last one at the bottom, you might find that actually I want to spread the weight of this using a waistband type system, so that my gels and energy drink, the small but heavy items, are going to sit more on my pelvis rather than compressing my spine. And where you stash your poles, whether that's in the quiver type thing attached to your bag or on your waistband at the bottom, just make sure you have at least a few runs with that all dialed in, even if it's just a 5k run around the block from home. Just psychologically, when it comes to race day, you'll know, oh yeah, I've practiced with all of this. There's been a bit of interesting development in the headlamp situation for UTMB this year. If you're not already aware, I'm sure you are. You have to have a headlamp that has a red light function. The route passes through quite a sensitive natural nature reserve after Le Contamine. They had a bit of a backlash there when Hoka decided to rock up without permission and have a crazy, like these tubes of light that all the runners passed through, and that's that caused a bit of difficulty. There was threats of the withdrawing permissions in the future, which would really scuppered the event. So you need a headlamp that has a red light function. I saw online that Petzl just at the last minute have started offering something. So yeah, you just don't want to get to the race and turn up at kit check and that's something that they check for, and you don't have it. I'm sure shops will have them available to buy in Chamonix though, if you don't have one just yet. And then just a final tip to put your warm layers, gloves and hat and stuff in plastic bags, just so they don't get wet. Cool. So moving on to the weather, the forecasting that UTMB tend to use is Meteo Blue. I'm going to open up the tabs in a minute just so we can have a quick look at that. It looks quite mixed at the moment, but like any forecast in alpine regions, things can quite quickly change within a week or so. So hopefully it'll be okay. Just a couple of considerations for us Brits traveling out there. The air is a lot drier once you get up to altitude, so you can, even if it's cool, you can start to dehydrate. And also, the last point here, in bad weather, you can also get very dehydrated because you just don't drink enough. You don't feel like drinking enough. So that feeds on into the next slide a little bit when it comes to how strong you mix your energy drinks and this kind of thing. So there's a bit of an interplay there between the weather and hydration, nutrition. So yeah, the second to last point there I made is kind of what I just talked about having a few different options that you can have without stopping to take your pack off. You know, that the more easily available things are to you, the more likely you are to use them. So you may even find you want to put your waterproof that's a size larger in that back kangaroo pocket so that you can throw that on over your pack through the night. There's another point here about following a sauna protocol. That's more for performance improvements rather than preparing you for the heat. If you search for Jason Coop's sauna protocol, you find something quite similar, but the heat conditions don't look like they're going to be to such an extent that being prepared with the sauna is going to really give you a great deal of benefit. But I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just so I can have a look at the weather forecast quickly. Share a different window now. So Chamonix can differ quite heavily from the Italian/Swiss side of Mont Blanc, the south side. So we've got the forecast on Friday, looks relatively good at the moment, but you can see before, even a few days before, it's quite iffy. So if there was loads of sun before, sometimes maybe that will extend a little bit and it'll be nice weather. But with your start time in the evening, it looks a little bit mixed. I think you're going to get wet and possibly a little bit cold on the higher passes. Then the Cormier side, it's also looking quite similar at the moment. Sometimes it can be really sunny on the Cormier side. They call it the sunny side. You'll see that slogan in a few places dotted around the town. But it looks like it's going to be a little bit British in nature weather-wise next week, which I'd much rather this than it being, in the low to mid 30s, as it has been at this event in the past. Cool. I'm just going to go back to my other presentation about, just so I can talk about nutrition briefly. I could talk about that. Oops, sorry. Yeah, nutrition for ultra running, it probably deserves its own dedicated webinar at some point, but I just wanted to touch on a few points just for this race specifically, with it being a 100-miler. Through experience, I've kind of developed my own philosophy when it comes to nutrition for ultras, particularly anything that has a finish time that's in the mid to high teens. So if you're really fast, that might be CCC for you, but certainly, yeah, for something like UTMB. So generally, the advice has been to try and consume at least 60 grams of normal, I've called them normal carbs per hour. What do I mean by that? I mean carbohydrates that don't include fructose. It used to be very widely accepted that was about what your small intestine could absorb in an hour. Fructose enters the guts, the bloodstream through the gut via a different mechanism, so you can absorb that on top of those 60 grams. More recently, in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of narrative about runners, certainly some elite runners and Tour de France cyclists, trying to consume more than that, like 120, 150 grams an hour. I really don't think that's a great strategy for your most ultra runners, really. If you go on Spotify and you search for a podcast by Evoke Endurance, it's by Scott Johnson, who is the coach of Tom Evans and Ruth Croft. He had a very good podcast with the nutritionist that works with Tom Evans, who did some research. He talks through it, and it's interesting if you like this nerdy stuff. But he had runners try 90 grams and 120 grams an hour, and there was no performance difference, but the 120 gram ones, they struggled a little bit with gastric issues. So yeah, it's a long-winded way of saying have your carbs, but maybe don't have too much of them. When you're early on in the race, I tend to tell my athletes to try and make hay while the sun shines, and by that I mean feel free to move a bit quicker in the first sort of 2 to 3 hours. A bit quicker to me would be sort of the low to middle end of your zone 3, so well clear of lactate threshold, well below, possibly close to marathon effort, and then after that 3 hours, trying to think about easing into a nice zone 2 pace that you can sustain for the rest of the race. During that 3 hour window, you're going to be breathing a bit heavier. It's quite difficult to eat a flapjack while breathing through your nose and your mouth's dry from all the heavy breathing, so do recommend trying to focus on getting your carbs from liquid sources. So that could be carry an energy drink in both of your flasks, or one flask water, one flask energy drink, and then topping up with gels just during that early period. But then as the race moves on, you're going to start slowing down, muscle damage is going to start to develop, and it doesn't make too much sense to try and stick to that same arbitrary grams an hour strategy. So I tell my athletes, you can start to back off. If your heart rate starts to decrease, certainly in a big long ultra like this in the second half, most all but the very best elite runners can't run an even split over 100 miler. You're going to slow down. The carbohydrate demands are going to decrease as you move more towards a lower pace where you're burning more fat. So you can come unstuck if you try and keep the carbs, forced down. They might end up making you sick. So yeah, the plan for my athletes I work with is it's a bit more dynamic based on what's going on at any one time. your hydration status can change through an ultra like this as well, and that has an impact on what you're able to absorb. The last point at the bottom, the Fab Four, what I mean by that is at any point in the race, it's great if you can have on you 4 things, something solid, something liquid that's both sweet and savoury. The liquid and savoury one can be a little bit challenging. That might be relying on your crew at aid stations to give you like a soup or something. There are some brands that do like vegetable puree type energy products. They're quite low on carbs generally. They not tend to be supplemented with maltodextrin or anything, but those options are available as well. Yeah, anything can happen over 100 mile in terms of what you think you want to eat, what's appealing. Your palate can change. You get sick of sweet stuff, you want this salty stuff, and then yeah, back and forth throughout those. But if you've got all those bases covered, then at least you know you can have something that's going to be appealing, hopefully, as you go through the whole race. The second to last point, just quickly touch on that. If you are taking good care of your hydration status, and that includes sodium intake, you're in a good place to not have stomach issues and therefore be able to keep the carbs that you're eating coming in and being absorbed. With the conditions forecast, this isn't such an issue, but in hot races, I would always say it's more important to think about your matching your hydration and sodium intake to your sweat rate and the temperatures, that kind of thing. But that takes a lot of preparation to become aware of, building up a chart with your sweat rates at different temperatures, a lot of work on the treadmill and stuff, but it can be done, and it just takes a lot of the guesswork out. I see a lot on various forums, or I had a bad race, I couldn't eat, and then my stomach went, and as if it's like a black magic curse that happens to people. And I've been there myself, I know what it's like, but it's usually based on this simple concept of osmolality and what your body's able to absorb due to your hydration and electrolyte status. Cool. So I'm going to move on now to the route specifics side of things. Just stop sharing this and move on to different window now. If anyone's got any questions as well as I'm going along, feel free to ask them in the comments thing, and get back to them when I can. Okay. So I don't know if anyone's been on the UTMB website recently, but they've now got it's had a big overhaul, and there's this really cool interactive map. So I'm just going to take the next sort of half hour or so talking through the race and what I know of it. Notes here, sorry. So if you are racing next week, you do need to have the Live Trail app installed, and once you open that and get yourself set up in it, it should automatically detect your number if you've logged in using the same email that you entered with. And on that, there's an option to create what they call a ghost table, and that initially will be based on your current UTMB index. But I just saw when I tried to create one for Lucas for the TDS, there's an option to override that now with your ideal estimated finish time. So if you think, well, actually, I'm a lot stronger than what my UTMB index is now, because the last race I did was months ago or whatever, then you can adjust that. It's very helpful for two things: letting your crew know roughly what time you might be at certain points, and also planning your nutrition strategy so that you can see, okay, it might be roughly, say for example, 3 hours between this point and that point. That means that I need to carry this with me. But yeah, we'll move on to the race itself. So it starts in Chamonix, as we all know. They have changed the start. I don't want to maximize this window, sorry, because it started going really slow, and I did the OCC one the other day. So sorry about the stuff around the edges of the frame. Yeah, fast road start out of town. This is I think the only race where they don't have start waves. I could be wrong on that, but they never used to have start wave, so I think everyone starts all together. The route did used to go further along these woods here, but there's a landslide here last summer, and now it's changed. So sadly, it looks like more road and boring trail down to Les Houches. So it's fast, flat running here, but the trail's nice and wide. There's lots of places to overtake or let other people past you if you want. But try not to get too carried away. Like it's a half marathon, it's easy to get set out a little bit too fast when you're nicely tapered and full of caffeine and whatnot. Yeah, go out at a decent pace, but yeah, not 10k effort. There's water and stuff here, but given that it's not going to be that hot, if I was racing it this year, I would just run straight through there. Maybe grab a cup of cola from my own foldable cup. But if you're hydrated on the start, you can make it through to Les Houches quite nicely. A bit more road running through the town here, and then you start on the zigzags up to Col de Vosa. It gets quite steep quite fast, but it's nice. There's usually nice crowds along here. It goes by quite quickly. Up in the woods here, it does get quite loose and rocky underfoot in one place, unless I've got confused. No, I think that's a different path. Fairly straightforward up to here. So I'm just trying to. There we go. And there's nothing at the col here. It's just a timing point, and then you make your way over here down to the trees. And then a fairly nondescript. To be honest, the first bit of this whole race to Le Contamines is a bit boring. I'll be honest. Not much in the way of epic scenery or interesting trails. It's not too steep, but there's quite a bit of road on this descent into Saint-Gervais. And then you do like this little bit contrived lap of the town. I think they wanted to be involved in the race, so they have to take a bit of a detour down here to visit. It's not like a big marquee or anything. It's just like a road through the town, and they have basically a big row of tables on both sides with various snacks and supplies on. So it's not really the place to sit down and have treat it like a proper aid station. From here, a bit more flat, undulating, runnable trail along the valley floor. It's quite nice in the woods here, and it pitches up a little bit before you start to drop down into the Contamine. Depending on where you are in the race, it's probably going to start to get dark here. If you're up near the front, when I did it in 2018, I just about made it to Le Contamine before I really needed my headlamp. So that'll just give you some idea as to when you need to get your headlamp out. Yeah, through the valley here. I don't have a great deal to say about this. It's just quite easy alpine single track through forests. Nothing really of note. But then you get to Le Contamine, roughly about a quarter of the way in here. This is the first proper big aid station in the car park here. I have a big marquee here. This is where your crew can meet you, but we'll get onto that in a little bit, because it's difficult for the same person to meet you here and at Courmayeur. So I'm going to talk through a couple of options later on in this presentation. First, so you're back on the road here. Bit of a detour around here. This, I think, from about you go through the section where you need your red head torch. I'm sure it starts just a little bit beyond here. You get to Notre Dame de la Gorge, it's called. This is you've probably seen this if you follow this race a lot. It's where a lot of the crowds are. Where is that? Sorry. I think it's just around here. You take a turn off here, and then you can't quite see it here. But there's a a place where there's usually loads of crowds, and there's like usually someone's put a fire in a bin and all that kind of stuff. Anthony's just sent a quick message. I'll just account for slowing down, do the ghost tables account for slowing down in the second half of the race. I think because it's based on your UTMB index, it's difficult to answer that. I think the assumption is those with a higher UTMB index don't tend to slow down as much later on in the race. So it probably does take that into account a little bit. But I can't say for sure. That would probably be a question for people at Live Trail themselves. The way the UTMB index works is they have so much data from different people. They can spot patterns. So based on your UTMB index, it will know if you're the kind of runner who is likely to slow down a bit or as the race goes on or not. But if you have something like your stomach completely goes, and I think it's based on the assumption that you can keep moving and you don't have your legs don't completely go, that kind of thing. So I'll get back to this route. Sorry, I'm a little bit disorientated here. But one thing that's worthy of note is, here we go. So the Notre Dame de la Gorge it's like just not far after the village here. Expect to see a lot of crowds. It's a really nice part of the race. It's dark and atmospheric, and everyone's cheering you on. It's a really cool part of the event. But I think where you're going to need the red head torches is kind of from here, just up this first section. There'll be signs on the race route. I've seen this in the runner's guide, so you've just got to look out for them, really. Quite how they'll police this on the race day itself, I'm not too sure, but this aid station here, La Balme, it's quite a big gîte, and they do have water stations out in the front. They don't advertise it as a water stop on the route profile here. It's just a timing point, but I know that you can get water there. So there was a question from someone, which I'll answer properly later, but just about some of these longer sections, is there anywhere else you can get water? But that's a good place just to break up the climb as well. You've only just kind of started it once you get to there, but if the weather is a bit cold and nasty, you can actually go into the hut there. It's pretty good. Everyone's like keen to watch the race and support you. And from there, curves around up to this. It's quite steep and loose and rocky here, and then you get into this plateau. It's a shame that it'll be dark when you're here, because in daylight this is really nice scenery here. There's a bit of a river crossing here. There is a wooden bridge. Hopefully the course is marked so you won't get your feet too wet. And then it pitches up another steep section into another sort of plateau, hanging valley. It's a bit higher up here, and then there's this last steep bit up at the top of this climb. You're almost at the top of this climb. It's a bit tedious. It's got lots of false summits, but being in the dark, you can't see where you are, so that kind of helps in some way. Hopefully it'll be well flagged, but when I recce'd this many years ago, I ran down this trail down here because there isn't an obvious trail. Isn't very obvious. If you're stood here, you can't quite see the trail here, so if you're following it on your GPX, you'll be fine, but don't run all the way down that valley and realize you've gone off route. And then you're onto some single tracky stuff here. It starts to get quite technical from here. You can see this rock fall. This whole next section is quite technical underfoot, a bit slow going, not very runnable. And there's a couple of bits as well where it goes quite steep all of a sudden. I think it's just here. You can't quite see it, but it potentially, you can miss the course markers here because it is quite rocky and featureless, especially at night time. So this is just a section to have your wits about you. May well be runners in front to follow. And then this is another sheet. You can see the building there. Whether or not they have, I don't think that has a water tap outside, and it's probably going to be closed in the night to buy something, so that's not worth relying on for a water top up. From here, the descent down to the next aid station at Le Chipio, I probably butchered that pronunciation a little bit. It's kind of broken into two sections. The first one is this very long mountain bike down this a couple of times, and it is a very fun trail. It's not too technical underfoot. It's quite fast and flowy, so just be aware that you don't get too carried away here, because you can get to the bottom of this and leave your quads in a bit of a state. There's a bit of a rocky, loose section here as well. And then there's like a little plateau here. Yeah, this is it. More switchbacks. And then you're onto this trail. And then this is a very steep final bit down to the aid station, so just mind it here. You don't want to be causing too much damage to your quads early on in the race. And then this is the first, another aid station where they have a decent amount of hot food options as well. So if it's night time and you know you're close to a third of the way in, it's worth taking just a couple of minutes here. It's the way they have it set up is there's a big marquee here, and there's like an out and back. You go in the marquee one side and out the other. And as you go into the marquee, this is where they do the first mandatory kit check. So you can have that in mind. They'll ask you to present 3 items at random, and then once you pass that, you can go through to the other side of the marquee and get your food and drink that you might like. After here, there's a bit of a road running actually, until you take the turn off back onto the TMB route. You can't quite see it on this map, but there is a road under here. It's that gradient that's just a little bit too steep to run easily, so all good if you have to walk all this, but just keep an eye out for this turn off here, because the road, it's easy to carry on the road here. There's a junction here where the trail just splits off slightly, and then you follow the road up this valley. Nothing technical underfoot really, but you'll be well into the night by this point. The climb that you're about to go over, this next col, it does go quite high. It's also quite exposed and very cold, so I'll be prepared to start thinking about wrapping up warm once you get to the base of this climb. Bit more contouring along, and then eventually at the end of this valley, there's some steep switchbacks. There they are. Yeah, it drags a little bit, this section, especially in the night, and then yeah, kicks right up that climb there, until there's, yeah, this is where you can see how potentially exposed this col is as well. Yeah, it's just if the weather is bad, but as you're going up here, it can be pretty nasty. Just have that in mind. I'd probably put my waterproof on at the bottom of this long before I get to that. I saw a comment from Tom Evans last year saying he took a bit better care of himself through that first night with putting his waterproof on, versus a couple of his rivals, you know, try to just muscle through it in a t-shirt or whatever, and then yeah, once the cold gets to you, it's difficult to undo that. Easy runnable section down here, but some years they haven't done this. It goes over this, the pyramids they're called, so just keep an eye out for that turn off. I did this in 2015, but 2018 it wasn't included, so it's pretty straightforward. But once you get up to the top on the other side, it's very loose rocks. Someone else is just going to join the call, sorry. Cool, sorry. This back section here is very loose and rocky underfoot. So that's not the place you want to turn your ankle badly. So just take it easy on this top section. You can see all the scree here to the side. That's the kind of stuff you're going down. I believe they added this in to try and hit 10,000 meters total elevation gain on the route, but it does make for a little bit of a contrived experience, in my humble opinion. And then you're down to the next aid station here at Lacombe. It's quite a basic aid station. There's no indoor shelter really. It's just a couple of gazebos, you know, with drinks and snacks and stuff. I think they might have hot drinks, you know, toilets and stuff like that, but it's not really a place to sit down. Best to keep on moving along here. And then again, this is this trail here is lovely in the daylight when you can see it. A bit of a climb up, but then the views across to the other the south side of Mont-Blanc are really nice. I think most people are going to be doing this in the dark, sadly. Underfoot conditions here are pretty okay. It does get quite narrow in some parts, the single track. I think that's just a timing point around there. And then this is a really nice, easy, gentle gradient down to this next aid station here, another water point. I've put a note just to be careful of this next descent down into Cormire. It's very steep towards the end as well. This is where some people, every year, loads of elites, they set off way too fast in UTMB, and many of them end up dropping down at Cormire and dropping out, sorry, and that last descent, it's yeah, that's the one that broke me in 2018 as well when I dropped out. So just treat this, it's just this tiny section, treat that with some respect, because it's way steeper than even the profile here. You can see it's almost like a vertical face. So just take it easy down there, and then you're at Cormire. You'd think this is the halfway point, but sadly it's not quite. Once you get to the next one, Refuge Bonatti, that's the halfway point, but Refuge Bertone even, sorry, I got that wrong. But at Cormire, really good aid station. I mean, it's huge. It's in a big sports centre. So there's pasta and hot food. They have a section for with beds if you feel you need to get some sleep. Your aid station crew can meet you here, and you can also have a drop bag transported here as well. So hopefully you're not in such a state that you need to stay here for too long. Most runners, I think, can get through the first night without really needing too much sleep. Maybe a quick nap if you really feel you need it, and then you're on your way up the valley here. It can be a bit of a chore to get going after you've sort of cooled down at Cormire. Try to get the legs going again. I know that this next climb, it's a bit grim. It's very steep, very relentless. Like the gradient is just steep pretty much the whole way. And this can be a point where you start to think, oh gosh, you know, am I actually enjoying this? Am I on like track for my target time, whatever? This is where some sort of doubts can start to creep in. Once you get to Bertone at the top, it's a very basic aid station. They basically only have water and energy drink there. You're officially distance-wise halfway. From here, there's quite a long plateau, which is it has you staying at 2,000 meters or thereabouts for quite an extended period. So this is also part of the CCC route early on. So yesterday I just made a point that if you're completely not acclimatized to the altitude at all, if your finish time might be, say, 40 hours, this section might take you several hours. So one little tip might be to invest in a power breathe. It's a resistance trainer for your breathing muscles, basically, and that might just keep you stop your breathing muscles from tiring out, and then you start to sort of pant, and you can't draw in like a full breath. It's a weird sensation. That's just a little tip from my personal experiences. Really nice trail, nice and runnable. Most people will be daylight again on the Saturday here. And then Refuge Bonatti, this is one of the bigger aid stations. It doesn't look like it does. Where are we? Yeah, it's saying Bertoni's got water, but I know for a fact the Refuge Bonatti has water troughs and stuff just outside the refuge that you can fill up from. If it's open, you could go in and buy a sandwich if you really wanted, but you're not far from the next proper aid station. Oh gosh, sorry. It's Arnavaz. This is an aid station where the spectator shuttle can go as well. But if you have crew, I would recommend they don't go to here to see you. We'll get on to crewing considerations in a little bit. From here, more contouring up the Valley Trail and then up to the highest point on the race route, Grand Corps Ferret. It's pretty straightforward. It's over before you know it. It's relatively short, quite steep, not too bad. But looking at the weather conditions, it could be quite cold and nasty up there, so just have that in mind. Then from there, we've got another section that can, if you go into it a little bit blindly, that's a heck of a lot of descending. I think I worked out yesterday, it's almost 30 kilometers downhill. Sorry, that's wrong, 20k. And it's all quite easy, non-technical running. You can get quite carried away here. Just take your time with it. You don't want to cause too much damage to the quads throughout all this. It's difficult for people in less alpine areas to train for these kind of races where you're going to be running downhill for several hours potentially. Just treat that with the respect it needs. Then you're into Switzerland. Once you get over the Col, La Folie aid station, similar to the others, big marquee in the road here, lots of local support. They have hot drinks and soups and stuff there as well. And then you are back out into the woods here. A lovely section of the route actually. Nice single track all along the riverbed. Not too technical underfoot. You can keep it moving quite well here. By this point in the race, all the runners are pretty well spread out as well, so don't need to worry about tripping over the poles of the person in front of you or anything like that once you get to here. And then it does join a road section for a bit further on. I think that's just here from memory. Maybe it's a bit further on actually. I think that this section here is actually on a 4x4 track, and then this climb always gets me bad because you've been using your descending muscles for so long, and then you have to switch gear right back into your climbing mindset. Especially this first little pitch up to this switch back here. I think it's either there or it's here. There's a really steep section and it's actually I think it's this here just before this switch back. Some nice woodland trails here, and then you're on the approach to Champillac, which is the next sort of life base, if you will. They have beds here to sleep, similar to Colmaya. It's a separate marquee, so they basically take over this car park here, one big marquee, and then there's a toilet block and a separate sleeping zone usually out at the back here. This is a place where you can get pasta. It's also a place where they do a second mandatory kit check, so before you go into the main marquee you'll get asked to show usually three separate bits of kit, and then this is where your support crew can see you again. Just on the support crew side of things, you collect a wristband registration. You're only allowed one person to crew for you, and that whoever's crewing for you will not be allowed into the aid station area until your ETA is about 10 minutes away or so, because they don't like people yeah, it just gets too crowded otherwise, and people take up too much space otherwise. So just a point to have in mind to relay to your crew if they've never crewed for you at this event before. Also, if your crew is coming to you from on the bus transport, I think from memory it's a bit of a walk. Can't remember exactly where the bus goes, but I think it's a bit of a walk in to get to this aid station from where the bus drops you off. Yeah, hopefully you've cracked the back of it by the time you get to here, as long as you're not chasing the cut-offs. The finish is almost in sight. Leaving here is always a bit of a struggle because you have like a few kilometers of road running, which is just a bit hard on the legs and the mind. You can see along the lake here. It's difficult to get back into gear, especially if you've sat down for too long or even had a sleep at Champilac. So yeah, just take your time getting back into it along this section, and then you hang a left into the woods here. More sort of forest tracks, nothing too technical, all the way along here. And then there's a little clearing in the woods where there's just a timing point here. And then you head around this corner up into this valley. And I've made a note here that this is where you've got two options close by where water is available. The section from Champilac to Trion is quite long, but you do have two river crossings here. I've drank from this water before. Recommend you have possibly a water filter or a third flask with a water filter fitted in the back. If you're concerned about water consumption, you can top up there. The trail here, this little bit up towards the river, it does get quite steep and rocky, and then it becomes quite easy. Last little steep pitch up, and then you can see the trees starting to thin out. You're back up at close to 2,000 meters elevation. More climbing up here. Lovely views over to Martini and the valley over to your right, and then you have this funny little timing point. That you do a little detour from the main trail to go through this. It's basically a barn in the middle of nowhere. It's a timing point for live trail, but there's also they have barrels of water there as well. They just don't advertise it on the route profile up here because I imagine it's quite limited to get supply up there. Probably has to be carted in on a quad bike, but that is potentially an area where you can restock as well. From here, it's a nice, easy, gentle gradients for the most part. The trails from here to the finish do start to get a bit more technical underfoot. I've tripped up a couple of times, stubbed my toes on various routes. Here it's a point where you start to get very tired, so just have that in mind. And then you drop down to Col de la Fourclaz here. Great spectator point. This is where the event gets quite Tour de France-esque. It's easy to get here from Chamonix if you have friends who are spectating and have their own transport, or even from the shuttle to Trion, you can hike up here quite easily. So loads of people here to support you, hopefully. This descent down to Trion is, if it's been raining, it's potentially quite muddy and slippery. It's the only part of the race route really where mud, like slippery mud, can be a problem. You might want to think about getting your hiking poles ready just to steady yourself. It's a bit tricky in some parts. Last thing you want to do is completely slip over and then your legs cramp up or worse. They'll send you over a bridge here as well, over the road. So that's a few extra steps up stairs. More of a muddy trail down to here, and then you go under a tunnel under the road here before you head up into the village. Yeah, lovely little spot. Quite iconic little pink church that you'll cross. You can't quite see it here. And then the aid station is set up in this clearing here, great big marquee. On the approach on this section to and from the marquee, they have lots of water troughs set up, so it's easy to refill your bottles there without having to wait for a aid station volunteer to do it here. I think they sort of assume that you'll fill your bottles up outside here. This is one of the better aid stations to crew at as well. They have the main marquee for the runners here, and then off to the side there's like a second smaller marquee where spectators can go. They have a bar, live music and stuff. It's really good. I crewed for a friend in CCC a few years ago, and nice atmosphere here. And then you're back on this out section. The theme of tedious runnable sections after the aid station continues here. This one's got a bit more of an uphill gradient on it. You'd be doing well if you can run all of this section. It's that gradient where it starts to get a little bit difficult to run. And then this is one of the steepest climbs of the route up through the woods here. We've changed the race route a little bit in recent years, but you can see how that just zigzags straight up that. Another timing point here. But yeah, you have to take your time with this. You're going to be feeling it by now. 150k nearly in the legs, super steep. And then you reach another little plateau here. This descent is where your legs are going to start to, you're going to be wincing a little bit, particularly this bit down here. It's quite steep into this bowl. The terrain here underfoot's fine, but once you get into these woods, it's quite technical underfoot actually, quite rocky, quite rutted as well, like the trail is like in a ditch, if that makes sense. And there's lots of big roots as well. So I do remember this being a section where you've got to have your wits about you a little bit. Before you drop into Valacine, another aid station where crew are allowed. It's set up in a big marquee in the back end of this car park. It's not quite as nice as the Triumph one. I think by this point the runners are just like zombies and just want to get home. There isn't much chat or entertainment going on here, but your crew can see you there. What else have I got to say? It's the last main timing point. And after this, there's another flat to slightly uphill runnable section. Past the campsite here. Just there. I quite like this section. It's just it's a nice quiet trail that weaves its way up the valley here to Col de Montet. You could go around the car park here. If your crew has their own transport, this is a nice little cheeky spectator point where they can see you. This is probably the last time they'll see you before Chamonix. The guy who was crewing for me in CCC gave me a bit of a pep talk here, and it seemed to work. I think I made up a few places on the last climb. And then just have your wits about you here at this road crossing. I'm sure it'll be marshalled on the day, but cars do come flying down here. This section has all changed in recent years. I think it used to send you up on the Aiguille Rouge. It's a national nature reserve. It's all this section up here. It used to go up this trail here, basically. It's a shame it doesn't anymore, but I think just due to the growth of this event, they've had to make some compromises and ecological reasons that it doesn't go up there anymore. But this trail, that being said, it's a gentler gradient, but it's very technical underfoot, particularly lower down, sorry. More rocky, rooty stuff. Not much running going on here up this climb, and then it drops down again. Technical, rooty, single track, and then the finish is almost literally in sight. Up there, as you start to work your way up this contour, you can see the lights of Chamonix on the horizon. And then more of the same right until you get to out here, and then as you go out of the tree line, there's the last climb It's quite steep though. Up this, it's like a big 4x4 track. You can't quite make it out in this map. Yeah, and it pitches up here, up this like a ski slope almost, to the last timing point at La Flégère. They do have a cola and water and some snacks, but it's not too much of an aid station really. As long as you make it through past here within the cut-off time, it doesn't matter if you get to Chamonix over time, you'll still be classed as a finisher. I think the most important thing is leaving Valacine on time. If you get to here, who knows if they'll let you through. I like to think they might if you're close to the cut-off, because I mean, if you get cut off here, how are you going to get back anyway? Might as well just walk down the race route. So don't hold me to that though. And then this is a lot steeper than it looks on the map. This is I remember biting my tongue a couple of times, and UTMB and CCC down this. Yeah, it's just rough on the feet and the quads. Keep an eye out for this turn off as well. It's easy to overshoot that. It's kind of hidden away a little bit off the trail. Don't think you can quite see it here, but you can see there's like a, it's like down this, there's like a, I don't know how to describe it. You see what I mean though? It's like off, it's not obvious. The junction isn't really obvious from here, so you don't want to end up running down this and then have to go back. That would not be fun. And then once you're back into the woods, it's one of the more technical parts of the race route. At the top end, lots of steep sort of short plunges down, and then into a like a switchback corner, and you've got to slow down for that, and it's hard on the quads, and then there's roots and rocks and stuff. It's a tough section here. And then you go to this is a very loose rocky section. Just mind out here, I think there's usually it's been raining, there's a small stream crossing that might be in space as well, but the trail does start to ease off in terms of technicality and gradients once you get to about here. And then depending on what time you finish, if it's sometime in the day, there's quite a famous little cafe called La Floria. I think it's just here. Be people there to cheer you on. Once you get through that, you are more or less on the, oh no, it's not there. I think it's further back up the trail, sorry. Once you get to there though, you're on the home stretch, down into Chamonix. You go past the sports centre here. This is where the bib collection is. These triangle buildings, and then you're running alongside the river here. Usually the spectators start around about here. Have a nice cheering. You have to cross the road here. Sometimes there isn't someone on that. So just have your wits about you if there's traffic and stuff, because they don't close this section of road. Unless they might put a bridge up. Sometimes they put bridges over places, but when I've done this event several times, that's not had a bridge on it. And then through the main high street, through town, and then just one thing to note, I think they've just made the GPX file here just go straight to the finish, but every time I've done this race in the past, you take a left here and you do like a last minute lap of the town centre here, past everyone cheering and enjoying their nice food and wondering what you've been up to. And then yeah, you hang a sort of do a bit of a dog leg right then left onto the final. Finish straight back where you started on Friday evening. You can actually see the shadow of the finish arch here from the Google map data. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to share on the route. There was a couple of sorry, let me just stop sharing my screen. There was a couple of notes. Yeah, I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about crewing. If you have crew, I think you need to make a decision whether they go to La Contamines or Courmayeur. definitely. So if they're relying on the UTMB transport and you're a slightly faster runner, if they have their own transport and you're, in the bottom 50% of finish times, then there's a chance that they might get through to Cormier in time to see you there. There is a bag drop for Cormier, but psychologically it can be nice to see a familiar face at that point in the race. The Contamine can be good to have crew if you are doing something like running the first section in road shoes, which I did in 2015, and then I changed my shoes there. You can also carry 2 small headlamps with the batteries, the really small Petzl light ones, and then when you see your crew at the Contamines, they can give you the proper head torch that you're actually going to use throughout the night, and then you give it back to them later on. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the questions here. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Someone said Triant aid station. I understand no crew this year. That's news to me if that's true. Okay, a week ago they removed crew assistance at Trion. That's a shame. Okay. Okay, interesting. I didn't pick that up looking at the race route info. Sorry. Well, that makes it a bit easier for your crew. Then it's easy for your crew to see you at Champelac and Vallecine if relying on the UTMB transport. It's quite difficult to do all 3, including Triant, if you're a slightly faster runner. I thought I was going to miss someone I was supporting in CCC because of that. So yeah, just some points there. Yeah, to personal preference. They've added an extra drop bag at Trian. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think streamlines the event operations for them a little bit. Yeah, with the amount of runners they have now, particularly in CCC and OCC, also going through there. Maybe they've had some logistical challenge. But yeah, in terms of other places, then I think you'd have to look at the timings, whether you can realistically have your crew get to you at Le Contamine and then Cormier. If I was going to do the event, I'd rather see my family, friends, or whatever, familiar faces at Cormier. That's a place where you can take a bit more time with them, have a sleep and that kind of thing, really have a physical, mental reset before setting off again. Someone's asked a question, do you know if there's a drop bag at Triant for CCC? I don't. I can find out quickly enough if I just you just give me 1 sec. That this tends to happen at UTMB every year. They make last minute changes. Apparently the OCC, the finish of that route changed just after I gave my presentation on Tuesday. So there's always last minute stuff going on behind the scenes with any race. So the CCC route, I'm just on that profile now. Yeah, it looks like the outside assistance has been removed. That I can't see anything on the course profile that mentions another drop bag at Triant. I feel like from memory you can get a drop bag from Champelac. Let me just check if it's. Yeah, so there's a drop bag at Champelac still. So I'd be surprised if they implemented a second drop bag at Trion so soon after. So I wouldn't count on that. I would assume it's going to be the same. 1 drop bag and or aid station support at Champelac. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's the same for UTMB as well. Drop bag, no drop bag at Trion. So yeah, first one in Cormier. Sorry, I missed that out of my presentation. The second one is Champelac. Cool. That's all the route specific stuff. I did have a couple of last minute points in my presentation. Sorry, we might be running a little bit over time on this. The earlier presentations were a little bit under time. No worries if you need to drop off. That's all good. We've done the route specific stuff. I'll share the I'm recording this presentation, and I'll share these PDF this PDF as well after in an email once the video's on YouTube. Yeah, the footwear choice for this, I'm sure if you're running, you've already got that pretty well dialed. Yeah, I recommend something that's a bit like 10 years or so ago. That was when ultra specific shoes were kind of becoming a thing. And yeah, unless you were running in a massive stack height Hoka, something like UTMB, you still have quite technical trails. So you need. I'm not a huge fan of the higher stack type Hokas. The shoe that I might use if I was racing UTMB again might be the VJ Ultra. That's quite high, or the Hoka Tecton X, something like that. That's a shoe that fits me really well. Socks wise, I love Drymax, the maximum performance ones. They've got Teflon wound into the fabric. When you first put them on and you're walking around at home on laminate floor, you're like sliding everywhere, but it seems to do the trick. I've never had a blister wearing those. Obviously, usual advice, don't try anything new that you've picked up in the expo that's going to make the magic difference come race day. Just please save that for another time. Yeah, a massage, if you're going to have one before the race, try and have that at least 2 days out. I know a very good physiotherapist, Scotty, who has worked with me over the years. And then when it comes to getting close to the race, try to do a run of some sort on Thursday, maybe just 30 to 40 minutes with some easy hill sprints, just to put a bit of good muscle tension into the legs. And just on the sleep side of things, in the days leading up, if you can do what sleep banking you can, that can pay dividends when it comes to trying to make it through the first night without needing a nap of any sort. Yeah, I used to sometimes take Phenergan. It's like an antihistamine, and I take some of that on. So that for me would be the Thursday night, and it would just guarantee me, it would knock me out. Wake up a bit groggy the next day, but then it was easy to have a lie in and have an afternoon nap, and then yeah, start thinking about getting the coffees in me before the race starts. So I'll be in Chamonix as well from Monday throughout the week. If you want to meet up or ask me anything, feel free to do so. My email's there. And then I had a couple of questions during the sign up. So the first one is about sleep management. So as I mentioned in the presentation, there are areas for sleep at Courmayeur and Champy-Lac. Hopefully you can get to Courmayeur without. It's difficult because if you're really tired and you feel you need a nap and you're comfortably within the cut-off time, then and all you want to do is finish, then maybe having a 20-minute, half-hour bit of shut-eye at Courmayeur could be beneficial. I've never gone through a second night in an ultra. I've always needed to have some sleep then. So at Champy-Lac, that's where I would have some kip. It is also possible to get your foil blanket out and just lie back on one of the benches at the aid stations. I've done that in UTMB. You don't have to sleep at the places where where they have the beds and stuff. Might be a bit noisy though. Another question that I think I've covered in terms of water access on the course in those two particularly long sections between those aid stations. In terms of what you decide to take extra flask wise, it's very dependent on your pace and speed. So that impacts the time that you're going to be without access to those water points. Also the weather, which looks quite inclement at the moment, in your personal sweat rate. it's very, very difficult for me to give a broad stroke answer to that, but I would advise you have at least 1.5 litre capacity throughout, and that some of those other aid stations you maybe leave with 3 flasks, 2 of which might have energy drink in, depending on the time in the race. And then a bit of a curveball question was from Michael about the current stone system, whether or not people are purposefully keeping their stones for longer so that they have more chance of, when they finally do enter the lottery, being successful. Interesting point, but every January, I think UTMB in their social media post about it will reveal like what the average running stones was to get a successful ballot entry. When I last worked at UTMB, I think it was only 5 in 2020, end of 2023, but it's probably gone up now to 7, 8, 9. So maybe people are waiting until they've done, two seasons worth of UTMB World Series events before they're comfortable entering the lottery. I know people who have 11 running stones and didn't get a place. I know people who had just 1 and did get a place. So I don't think there's much merit in people purposefully trying to build up that stock, to then guarantee that entry, unless they have decided, actually, I don't want to. It would not be the best thing if I did get in this year because I don't feel quite prepared yet. So yeah, there probably are people unknowingly just letting that stock build up. But yeah, that's everything I have to share today. Thanks very much. That's coming actually on 75 minutes dead on. So yeah, if you have any questions about this event or the UTMB World Series training in general, my passion is this kind of event, the mountainous ultra trail type events. If you want to do a race that's a bit more flat and runnable, there are probably better coaches out there to help you with that. But yeah, if you have any questions, I did have a bit of time scheduled at the end for a Q&A session. I'm just having a look here. Do many people actually sleep at the aid stations? I just assume everyone powered through. No, I when I was crewing for my friend the CCC, I went to the Champelac aid station. That was well into the was that Friday? Yes, CCC starts on Friday. Yeah, and there were plenty of people, at least a few people. I remember walking into the marquee accidentally, thinking it was the wrong one. And yeah, people do make use of that. I can't say on the Courmayeur one. I think I've ever been there when I haven't been a runner myself. I think it's good to power through the first night, but it's difficult to do 2 nights on the trot. When I did UTMB 2015, I didn't sleep, and that was 29-hour finish time, so that's finishing like 11, 12, I think, at night, but that's okay. Going through a second night, I don't know. I wouldn't advise that really. I have a head torch with a red light of 2 lumens. Will that be okay? Difficult to say, because I think the difference here is they want your front headlamp that you're actually going to be using to follow the trail. They want that to be red. 2 lumens seems a little bit on the low side. But I don't know too much about this section of trail and how long it is, whether it's just a really easy, really, whether you'd be fine with something like that, or if it goes onto the technical section past Notre Dame de la Gorge. And I know it's somewhere around there. The details might be in the runner's guide if you dig through that. I haven't looked at that fully yet myself. But yeah, those are all the questions. Yeah, like I say, feel free to reach out to me on email, and I will upload this now to YouTube as well, so people who couldn't attend can watch it back later. And yeah, if you're racing next week, I wish you all the best of luck. If you're one day dreaming of racing it, then yeah, I'd love to I'd love to be part of that journey with you. And yeah, maybe I'll see you on the start line at UTMB or another event of that nature in the future. Cool, thanks very much. I'm going to drop out myself now. Cheers.